I hear voices. Maybe it will leave us alone now.
Lethal Omen is one of the most spine-chilling and terrifying games out there. The aesthetic, the atmosphere and the lore all make this game honestly one of the best pieces of media to be released in the analog horror genre. It's part of the Gemini Home Entertainment series and naturally comes packed with references and lore all to do with Gemini Home Entertainment. Now you don't have to be some sort of lore expert to be able to play and understand this game, but it definitely helps to have an idea of what's going on. But don't worry, I'll explain all of it as we go through the video, so hopefully it'll make sense. The game takes place in and around the Moonlight Acres family camp, a fictional family camp in the series. As you load in, you'll immediately notice the graphical style of the game. It's made to look like an old PS1 game, having low poly models of the environment, objects and characters. You'll also notice that everything seems to wobble and wiggle as you look at it. This is called affine texture warping and it really sells the whole PS1 aesthetic of the game. Now if you're wondering what causes affine texture warping, essentially it's due to the fact that the PS1 has no Z buffer in its GTE, meaning that the scan lines between each polygon don't actually calculate perspective, therefore the objects appear to wobble as you look at them. Now that's an extremely simplified version of it, but if you want a really in-depth explanation into affine texture warping and PS1 graphics as a whole, you can check out Modern Vintage Gamers video. I'll leave a link in the description. All of the sound effects like walking and shooting are also heavily compressed, again immersing you into this era of gaming. Now this should make Lethal Omens feel nostalgic, as a lot of people grew up with this era of gaming. Instead the game feels alien and unnerving. You have this constant feeling of isolation that's amplified by the fact there isn't really any music in the game. The only music that can be found is the title screen and the little chime as you load in. Other than that, it's just sound effects that complement what's happening on the screen. To add to the isolation, the only characters you'll interact with are enemies, meaning that there's literally nothing on your side in this game. And speaking of enemies, it's never confirmed what or who these enemies are in the game, but they could potentially be people that have been infected and taken over by a woodcrawler. Woodcrawlers, also known as skinwalkers, are a large spider-like alien that are extremely skilled hunters, often going around entering prey and creating fake people. So it's not really something you want to be coming across on your family holiday. The model of the enemies are extremely unsettling, their heads always facing you and having direct pathfinding to rush you immediately after you're spotted. This combined with the fact you can't fire a gun whilst walking forwards makes it a really interesting combat scenario. You're running away from the enemies, always being defensive. You're not attacking them, they are attacking you. This makes the combat feel very frantic, and there's no real strategy to it. As you never need to reload your gun, you just have to click as fast as you can at the enemies, hoping that they'll die. Now after you've killed 2 waves of enemies, you can unlock the normal ending of Lethal Omen. Walking around to the area opposite the admin cabin, you can see that an enemy has been taken over by Nature's Mockery. Nature's Mockery is one of the final stages of deep root disease, a condition in which roots enter the body and connect to the host bones, slowly taking over the body, eventually turning them into a Nature's Mockery. Earlier, you saw the message kill all enemies, however there isn't actually another wave of killable enemies. Instead, the invincible enemy will emerge from the bushes and slowly walk towards you. This enemy, whilst being invincible, has a different walking animation to the other enemies, being slower and looking like it's almost limping towards you. You'll then get the message that all enemies are dead, following by one telling you to run. Then, the most haunting alarm sound is played from the speaker by the admin cabin. You'll notice as well that the door to the cabin is no longer there, but the door to the left of it, the one to the storm shelter, is open. After repelling the woodcrawler, you're transported back outside. Walking around to the entrance of the park, you can hear something screaming in the distance. And also, you're now unable to fire your gun, the only method of defense you have in this game. As you get closer, you can see the silhouette of someone on the hill. They're made entirely out of the Nature's Mockery texture and shaking, continuing to scream and cry out for help, but they're stuck looking at the sky.
Help me! Someone! Help! Help! Somebody! Help! Help me!
What just filled the sky was the iris. As the name suggests, it's a massive eye that's found its way into our solar system, watching over all of the planets. All of the aliens now on the Earth have been created by the iris. Presumably, the iris has destroyed Earth, making the end of the world the winning outcome for Lethal Omen. Going back in the level to the storm shelter, it's important to note that a very similar one was advertised in the video Storm Safety Tips, having the same metal dome and radio. However, it's quite apparent that the shelter isn't really there to protect you against storms, more so to protect you from woodcrawlers. On another note, the screaming person could be the same as the character at the end of a Wilderness Survival Guide video, as they both have the same screaming sound. Also, that person does have a very similar walk to the invincible enemy. I'm not really sure the lore connotations of that, but it's something cool to notice. The next achievable ending of Lethal Omen is the Mannequin Ending. The Mannequin Ending starts the same way as a normal ending. Collect all the keys and kill all the enemies. However, instead of searching for the invisible enemy, go straight into the admin cabin. At the back wall of the cabin, there's a table with computers stacked upon it. You can use these to parkour up to the hidden door on the wall behind you. After you enter the room, you can read some notes on the floor.
Lights in the skies tonight. I have been told that the men will be present. Maybe it will leave us alone now. I hear voices. The spot on my neck has gone. There is a bonfire tonight. I will stay in my bedroom. It is looking into me. Wants to eat the camp. I fear the men may return. My face is going away.
The spot on the person's neck is another reference to deep root disease, as the disease starts out as a small spot either on the arms, leg or neck of the victim, meaning that this person has been infected, and after the roots have attached themselves to the bones, they will turn into Nature's Mockery. But as soon as you turn around to leave the room, you're greeted with a mannequin. The mannequin has a higher poly model than most other objects in the game, also turning its head to follow you around the room, and you can also hear some heavily distorted crying in the background. If you try to get past it or touch it in any way, the game ends. Footage of more mannequins outside the cabins is then shown, and then someone or something knocking at the door, presumably one of the cabins. Now, a popular theory is the mannequins are also the well-dressed men, characters that have been referenced all throughout the series. These men have been sent down to Earth by the Iris to communicate with humans in order to make a deal. That deal being, if you don't answer the knocking at the door, you don't get killed by a woodcrawler. Only those who answer the knocking get killed. Again, the crash ending starts the same as the two previous. Collect all the keys and kill both waves of enemies. And like the normal ending, you're going to go around to where the invisible enemy is. However, when you get there, you can find a gap in the bushes. This path takes you round into the blocked off area of the camp. Continuing around, you can find a hidden area. This area contains another hut, another key, and an enemy stuck in a T-pose. I'm not really sure why they are there, but they can't kill you, and you can't kill it, so it must be some sort of back-end reason. You can use this wooden plank to climb onto the wall, and then you can use the wall to jump onto the roof that you'll clip through. And then you can climb up this tree by holding W and jumping. Once you're at the top of the tree, you can then jump off, collecting the key. Now, I won't lie, this took me many attempts to get right. For some reason, jumping on this tree is probably the hardest thing to do in the entire game. On my first playthrough, I must have spent a good 5 to 7 minutes just trying to get this bloody key. Oh, for After you have the key, you can walk back out the park. In the forest area outside the park, a target has appeared on the floor. If you shoot this, you now have access to the road leading into the camp. There's a stricken police car a couple of metres down the road. Presumably it got stuck there trying to answer an emergency call for the park. The game just crashes to desktop. The face you saw just before the game crashes was the same face in the video, A Game for Kids. The face appears when the video is telling the viewers how to play a game called Feed the Woods, which, as the name suggests, doesn't really end well for people trying to play the game. Also, at the end of the video you can see a police car get crushed by a woodcrawler, very similar to the one at the start of the road. After you've collected the first 3 keys and killed the first wave of enemies, you then have to shoot all the archery targets. After you've done this, you can go back out of the park to find there's now a massive hole in the camp wall. Walking through, you're greeted with what can only be described as some sort of cult ritual ground. Exploring more, you can find another gap in the bushes. Past this gap, you'll see that all the bushes have been now taken over by nature's mockery. The further you go, the more nature's mockery has taken over, and then the path seems to lead into this massive hole in the ground. And there's only one way to finish this ending. This is by far the shortest ending, however it tells us that nature's mockery is starting to take over, creating holes and spreading through the wildlife, as well as giving us a preview into the next and final ending of Lethal Omen. The Seance ending is the final ending for Lethal Omen. It starts, as you'd expect, by collecting all the keys and killing both waves of enemies. Then, shoot all the archery targets and collect the 4th key. After you've done all the setup, you can walk through the same gap in the wall as the whole ending, round to a ritual site. This time, enemies line the path towards a monument, watching you as you walk towards it. It's night time now, and all the enemies have moved on from the ritual site, but now you're walking slower, presumably because you're injured due to whatever the enemies have done to you. The environment has changed, the park disappeared and replaced with another forest area and a single cabin. Nailed to the trees are some signs.
Shifting and shape and enemy there are fewer lives now and that my wide goal, a stranger that you scrape the walls.
You can see in the gap in the bushes that enemies are still watching you. In order to enter the cabin, first you have to knock. Similar to how woodcrawlers have to knock on the doors to the cabins in order to kill people. As you walk down the hallway, you can hear floorboards creaking beneath you.
The floorboard creak while I sleep, going direct sleep with red. The field has eyes, burning deeply become restless.
The last thing you see in the game is the iris watching over Earth, leaving the lasting impression that we aren't alone and it's potentially been watching this entire time. All the endings in Lethal Omen, in my opinion, end the same way. Every scenario that you get yourself into in this game will kill you in some way, either by surviving long enough to be consumed and taken by the iris along with the rest of the world, or being outright killed by a woodcrawler, or, jumping down a massive hole in the floor and then being killed by deep root disease. Despite the nostalgic graphics and almost innocent appearance of the game, there is no good outcome, only the end of the world. And after you've found all the endings, you realise that there's nothing you can do to stop the world ending. You're absolutely powerless compared to the force of the iris is. Most games and pieces of media have the main character preventing the end of the world, but in Lethal Omen, there's the opposite. No matter how well you play or what ending you choose, you'll either go out on your own accord, or go down with the rest of the world.